Welcome to the Slade Ham experiment. Cheers, everyone. 2022, almost behind us. The Christmas season is here. 'Tis December. I've tried to do something a little festive with the lights. Does it feel? I don't like red and green Christmas. I like the kind of classy Christmas, the blue and white and silver Christmas colors. Anyway, I tried to be festive. This is likely going to be my last episode of the year. I think I'm taking the rest of the year off. I grant myself license to change my mind, to do a renegade episode somewhere in the middle of this month, but we'll see. Likely going to be my last thing through the end of the year, which is why I want to talk about a lot of what's gone on this year for me and what to expect next year, but also some of my thought processes behind a lot of it, because I have been very absent from, I don't want to say the public eye, but certainly from the social media world, something I did very intentionally. So as an artist, as someone who thinks what they do is artistic and sometimes gets paid for it mainly, as someone who pays their bills with what they create, the last couple of years have fucking sucked. Like they've been incredibly difficult. And not just for me. I mean, this is probably blanket for a lot of artists, even the ones that are navigating it quite well. You had to be strategic. It was difficult. So I made some decisions about how I was going to manage my addiction to dopamine. Right, I was very tied to, especially on Facebook, a lot of the likes and the thumbs ups and the comments and that culture and writing things that were going to get social currency. Right, I know how to do that. How to write, this should get 500 likes. And that's a ridiculous way to wake up every day and go, what can I write that's going to fill in that gap that these people want, so I can get this chemical drug released in my brain, right? So I knew I wasn't strong enough to play that game without being addicted, so I extracted myself from it. Now, if you do that, what happens is a lot of the benchmarks you're used to disappear. And as someone who does not have a manager or a boss or any sort of oversight whatsoever other than what is self-directed, you have to replace that with something. I think for a lot of, I keep saying artists, but probably musicians and comedians and other artists, that is actually a good motivator. It's social media can drive you to produce, and I suppose in some capacity that's good, but for me, it wasn't driving me to create things I wanted to create. It was driving me it was like having a job. And if I wanted one of those, I'd go get one. So a lot of what I've done has been deliberate. I kind of want to look back at this year. I want to get to some listener questions, if I can, that are kind of on topic. But if you look back to the beginning of this year, I was staring down. I knew what my schedule was. I had one overseas tour in Europe in May, and then I had a basically empty calendar. A lot of that was by design. I had decided that I was not going to revisit some clubs that I was playing. I was not going to go back to some of the cruise ship stuff I was doing. There was a lot of restlessness in me. And I think that's very important when you recognize, when you know when your body's, you know what I mean? Feels like you got bees under your skin. Every decision you make feels wrong. You just know your gut, what are we doing? That's where I was. So I cut a lot of that out of my diet. And I ended up with this vacuum. And nature abhors a vacuum. Horror vacui, I think, is the Latin for it. And I was just kind of trying to think how else to explain this, because I know there's a lot of people sometimes, if you're feeling stagnant and kind of, in the quagmire of your quagmire of your career. What am I doing? Same old thing every day. The slog. You just feel the mud sucking at your boots every single day. And it's terrifying to consider just pulling the ripcord and going, you know what? I'm not gonna do shit for a month or so. And I was kind of sitting in that space of either or, right? That terrified me, not working the road like I had been. Because when you've been doing stand up for 23 years, that's kind of your identity. You kind of become whatever it is you've been. And the concept of not being that thing leaves this gap, this absence. And if you don't have something to plug into that hole, you will go cotton flipping mad. You just can't help it. So that's where I was. And then my dear friend Andy Huggins inquired about shooting a comedy special, something he'd never done. And I've got a bit of a track record with this. We've talked about it. I've done the Whiskey Brothers special. I produced Jerry Wayne Longmire's special. But I'd never done one of this magnitude. I was committed to pulling it off. We raised a lot of money. And I got to pivot my mental energy towards creating something for someone else. And also occupying my time. Not making me any money, but occupying my time. And as a creator, as an artist, if you're listening, that's what's most important. I had to find a groove of something to work towards that mattered. It's such an important thing. Not to be chopping wood for TikTok, not to be, all that stuff will come if you need to do it. But what I got interested in was the process over the results. And if you're somewhere on this ledge trying to get somewhere in anything, whatever it is, that's the only way to do it. I'm going to come back to this because it answers a question a little bit later. But the idea of building a regimen, right? This, for me, it's a lot of why I made this podcast in the first place. Was not, and there's a reason no one's watching. It's not promoted. I don't post it on anything. I just make it and I put it out there it's like you're reading my journal, but with a point. So I use this as a way to work out ideas. I use this as a way to flesh some stuff out. But most importantly, I've been using it as a touchstone every single week to keep me accountable. If I'm not going to go out and do some of the road stuff I've been doing, if I'm not going to go visit some of the clubs I've been to, and I'm still going to try to develop a show, which is part of what's going to happen next year, the only way to do that is to create a space where I can, where I am my own audience. I have the light on, I have a microphone in my hand, and I'm able to work through the stuff that I'm trying to get to. So that's sort of been my thought process. Right? Step one, extricate yourself from the noise. Completely get off of the social media platforms and just exist not on them. Two, find something to do in the meantime. Something to occupy your idle hands that want to get on there and start flame wars with people about what's going on in other countries and in places you have no actual opinion on. But you're supposed to. So anyway, that's number two. You got to replace that thing. And the thing to replace it with then has to be the work. It has to be the thing you're trying to accomplish. The little day-to-day chiseling away at that big block of marble you're trying to turn into something probably dumb and unneeded, but you got to do it because it's what's in your head. Step three, I say that. Step four, I don't know. These aren't in any real order. I'm making them up as I go along. Step four is to get something regular in your life. Not just a big project, yes, but then you got to break that down into digestible parts. Dissect it into digestible. A lot of dies there. You got to break it down into parts you can actually fit in your mouth. Here's a thing, and then when it's done, not because it's done, but because it's a step in the process, your brain gets that nice little reward. Bing, bing. You're on to the next step. You don't really care if you ever get to the end. The end just means there's no more steps, and the steps, what are making your brain light up. So that's step 4. Step 5. Step 6 for me was to build something inherently offline this year. I wanted to, and I'm kind of cheating because I started this a year prior, but to commit myself to something that did not require, that wasn't a podcast, that wasn't YouTube videos, that wasn't comments, I wanted something that existed analog in the real world, and it'll be a whole episode on its own, but I'm a climate change company that we started that it's very cool. It's a paint that drinks CO2 out of the air. And it's been incredibly cool working with engineers and scientists and a bunch of people I would never get to work with. And that exists entirely tangibly. I can touch these people and the products and the ideas and the research and the experiments, and it's completely not like everything else I do, and it's wonderful. So that was part 6. And I think that my sanity over this last year has gone up. I think that one of the things that is, if you're an artist, you're pretty much convinced from Jump Street that the only way you're going to be able to make stuff is to be completely damaged and broken and sad or gray, emotional all the time, that those things are somehow tied to one another. And it's been amazing to find out that none of that is true. That, all of the distractions we throw into our own way, many of them self-sabotaging, and I think we're all quite aware of what our own version of that is. I know what my 9 kinds of did I say 9? Did I mean 90? I know what vices I have. That's all easy shit, dude, to blame for not getting stuff done. All the nights out, all the drinking, all the one night stands, it's all glorious. I got a closet full of shirts. I've taken multiple boxes to Goodwill. I'm still finding shirts in the washing machine. Like, how do I have all these shirts? I'm tired of shirts. So I spent a big year cleaning out that closet, if you will, removing T-shirt of vice after T-shirt of vice till I was down to just my 1 or 2 favorites in moderation. The most useful. Nobody's a saint. But what I've found, and let this be reassuring to you, is that none of the creativity disappears if you clean it up a bit. Not your mind, not your soul, not the part of you that makes shit, but the part of you, the 4 a.m. part of you that doesn't wake up until 2 p.m. the next day part of you. The unmotivated, tired all the time, stoned on the couch, drunk in the morning, doesn't leave the house until 10 p.m., drives drunk all night and gets home at 4, and then, that's too late. That part of you, you can smother that part with a pillow, and I promise you're going to be just fine. Some of the best people I know in this world are entertainers. Some of them are very dear friends of mine. Musicians across multiple genres, radio personalities, people I admire greatly, and some comedians. So many of them have flipped some switches in their lives in the last year or so, and I'm slowly watching all of them have the best years of their lives. And oddly, so am I. So, whatever that coincidence may be, draw a circle around the part you think's important. My year next year, I'm going to get to this question for sure, if not a couple others. My year next year, and I've decided most recently that I'm not thinking that far in advance. I think 3 years in advance is about as far out as I want to try to guess what I'm into. So next year, I got a book to finish. I've been diligently pecking away for the last quarter. Books are hard. I don't know if you've written one, or if you've thought about, even thinking about a book is hard. So I wrote a bunch, I threw a bunch away. I wrote a bunch more, I threw a bunch away. Then I told myself I was writing for a long time when I wasn't really writing, and then some stuff came out that wasn't really great. I threw it all away too. Anyway, now I've finally actually been writing with some purpose, and I think I'm happy with what's there, but who knows? I could throw it all away next year. My goal is to finish this book next year and then figure out when it's coming out. We'll also release the Andy Huggins special. That's very important to me. And in the summertime, I intend to tape my own. So there's Slade news. I've got to figure out what I'm going to do after that, because taping in the summer, I know I've got dates in May and June. I think Colorado, Dallas, Louisville, some places. Finish the show, come back here, tape it. I committed to traveling some more next year. I have parts of Africa, I think, on the books for work. I'm going to be in Djibouti. Where's Djibouti? Just south of Jabals. Can't say it without saying the joke. Djibouti, Kenya, probably over to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, some other places. Egypt, I think, is on that list. So, and then I'm doing March. I'm going to Japan for a couple of weeks, and then I will have the travel stuff out of my system. So that's my goals for the next year, and that will involve me stepping back into social media in some capacity. I've decided that I've got to in some ways, but I'm doing it with parameters. Lots of parameters, a lot of intent, a lot of non-doom scrolling, a lot of barricades and protocol in place to keep me from falling into that. But I think I'm capable of functioning as a productive adult now, perhaps. We'll see. It will be a lot of one-way stuff if I do it. Let's see here before we go. We're not close to going, but I want to get to these questions. This one in particular, because it's only going to allow me. I'm probably going to yell at you. Full disclosure. I have strong feelings about this. I'm going to read your two questions back to back. How do you feel about people, maybe newbies, trying to copy off your style or craft? Do you take it as pure flattery, or do you feel it's best to protect your creativity? Okay. Part two, I'll address that in a second. Part two, I actually have a lot of questions, LOL. Selling art will always be my thing. It's what started my adventure to being a YouTube influencer, but over time, I've really enjoyed making videos and editing and capturing golden moments on film when I can. Sometimes art takes a back burner, but I feel like videos wouldn't be as fruitful if I didn't commit completely and somehow bank off of it. As a comedian filmer, do you feel it's best to keep your first interest at number one, then everything else follows behind, or just finding balance and not being stuck in one project? So, selling art will never be your thing. Can we get that narrative out of your head? Selling art is not your thing. Making art is your thing. That is the whole point, the whole purpose, the whole thing I'm trying to drum into your heads. Yes, you want to sell it. It's so stupid to say, oh, I just want to do art to make art. I don't want to sell it. Of course, you got to make money. But Seth Godin, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. Godin. Brilliant marketer, brilliant mind. Um, I can't remember how he phrases it exactly, but there's the professional you that the you that has to work, the you that's got to make money. There's the you that has passions. And you got to agree the same way I do. I don't want to go do corporate gigs. I don't want to go play Christmas parties this year. I don't want to get up in front of some corporation and their 100 employees and tell jokes that don't come anywhere near the edge, all safe and proper for these dumb Christmas people. I don't want to go do that. I'm telling you right up front. But I want to cash a check with a comma in it. That I enjoy. I want to make money. So I make, I make consolations. I come to agreements with myself. Yes, you go suffer through that for an hour, and then you're free to come yell into a camera for a half hour a week and try to find punchlines for your stage show that you really want to do. That's the trade-off. That's the trade-off. Whatever it is you're doing, and it doesn't have to be, my corporate gigs or my cruise ships or my whatever stand-up club I don't want to go to, but I'm there this week. If I don't like the gig, that's the same equivalent of your day job. It's a little closer to what I like to do, but it's the equivalent. So think of your day job in that way. That's the trade-off. That's the tax you pay to do what you're passionate about. If at some point you stay passionate about the thing you're passionate about long enough to get exceptional at it. I mean, exceptional. The top, think of the profession you're in, whatever it may be, right? Care if you're a typographer, an insurance salesman, a realtor. There's a top percentage point. That's what you're aiming for. That's when the money just comes and life's great. But in the meantime, your happiness cannot be attached to the money you make off of the thing you profess to love. You just got to do the thing you love and trust and hope and fall asleep crying and wondering and thinking and cursing gods you don't know yet. Just all that one day you might. But your heart's just got to be in it. You just got to do it because you love it. That's the getting upset about copycats. Nobody wants to be stolen from. But nobody's stealing anybody's stuff and making millions of dollars off of it. If a joke you wrote ends up in a movie, that's money you lost. But for the most part, nobody's stealing your stuff. They copy your style. You just got to be more you. I used to worry about comics stealing my jokes all the time. And I realized that the more specific I wrote, the harder it was for you to steal my joke. Sure, you could steal a premise, we could both go up there and talk about kind of the same thing, but my experience should be so drizzled all over that bit that you couldn't steal it. It would look like an impression. And that's what we should all be trying to do, I guess. I didn't mean to be dismissive of the theft, because it's certainly it happens and it's rampant. But if you focus less on those people who aren't going to go anywhere if they're clearly copying other people's styles and taking elements of other things and just recreating them. But the truth is, we're all in some shape, form, or fashion, taking little elements of this and that and combining it together with our life's experience to create a style that's our own. So I think if you do two things: one, focus on the things you find beautiful and the things you find aesthetically pleasing, and slowly start to assimilate the good parts of that to help augment your style. And then two, just keep doing what you're doing. Make the you stuff you can make, and trust that the rest of that's going to fall off. Let them have their season of playing copycat. As for the other, making videos or whatever else, the you can't think about this as what's going to be the most fruitful. You cannot create a, I mean, I guess you can. You can create a job for yourself. You could create a podcast or a video series from nothing and commit yourself to it wholly and go out and sell sponsors in advance, all on the, the hopes and dreams that you might pull it off. And then you bring that money back and you put it into marketing and you get really good guests but that is a 60 or 80 hour a week job. So if you're not going to do that, which is what's going to put you in that upper 1%, and I'd argue, even in many instances like this, the Whiskey Brothers being a different animal, but this show, I'm not willing to do that. I'm not going out to sell this. I don't have anything to sell. This is an idea dump. This is a thing that I decided was going to be rewarding, even if not a single person watched it at all. And that is the trick to everything. There is no number one. There's, the stuff I really, really, really love to do at my core, the big ones. Stand-up comedy for sure, but also traveling and exploring new places and all of these things. Trying to prioritize all of that is tough. Trying to prioritize that around the things that you have to do to make money and to survive is even harder. So I think you should look at your life and figure out how much tax you have to pay in exchange for how much freedom. And then take that freedom that you have bought yourself and spend it as selfishly as you possibly can. Spend it only on the things you like, the things that bring you joy, the things that make you happy, not to finish, but to create. Whatever that is. If that's you in a paintbrush, if that's you in a guitar, a ukulele, if that's you in scuba gear, if that's you with a fishing pole, if that's you with a microphone, if that's you with a cookbook, whatever that is, make sure that brings you joy. And then go do that. It's the best advice I can give anyone at all. Find something you can sustain and something you can tolerate while you're doing it. And that sounds so low and stoic and surrendery. Find something you can tolerate. But if you're going to get great at anything, you're going to have to do it a lot. And you're just going to have to enjoy that a lot. So Merry Christmas to all of you. Happy holidays, whatever it is you celebrate. Cheers to you. I will be back in 2023. The Slade experiment will continue. I am going to do a lot more interviews. I'm going to do a lot more stuff on the road. I'm going to get weird and funky and test some stuff out and segment some stuff up and still have my ranty days when I want them. And I don't know exactly what to expect, but it's going to be fun. A new special from me, a new book, some new countries worth of Slade runners, and hopefully all of that by mid next year. And then I can figure out what I'm going to do with the rest of it. But I hope that you will be there for it. Thank you guys for letting me play and letting me work through a lot of this show. You'll recognize a great many jokes when the special comes out. Happy holidays. We made it through 2022. I raise a glass to you. And if you don't have one, just fist bump me. We'll call it a day. I'll see you on another episode soon.